Hi, guys. Welcome to Wandering into the Woods, a podcast brought to you by the creators of Adventures with PG. This is Linda.
And this is Jarrett.
And today we'll be talking to you about Jarrett's adventure into the Narrows here in Texas. Jarrett, could you just tell us, to begin, as somebody from, deep South Texas, where are the Narrows?
So the Narrows are part of the Blanco River. They're not really near anything. I guess you could say they're close to Blanco, kind of. But
So if I'm looking at a map of Texas, where would I start? Where would you point my finger to first?
Blanco.
Where is Blanco?
Fredericksburg.
And Fredericksburg is a little bit southwest of Austin?
Maybe a little bit southwest, but mostly west.
Okay, mostly west.
Yeah.
So it's between Austin and San Antonio.
Yeah.
Right, but to the west.
But to the west.
West, okay. Okay, and somewhere along there is the Blanco River. And somewhere along there are the Narrows.
Yeah.
Okay. So that way we have a better idea for those people that are not from Texas, more or less of what we're talking about. What is the landscape in this area like?
It's pretty classic Central Texas. Rocks, shrubs, some trees, and limestone rocks everywhere.
So that being said, what is it that attracted you and made you say, hey, I want to go on a really long hike to this location?
It's one of the coolest river spots in Texas, I think. It's, I don't know, fern walls. It's a valley.
Uh-huh.
No, a canyon.
Okay.
So
what's the difference between the valley and a canyon?
I
just
don't
pretended
know.
like I knew. But
I don't know, but it's considered a canyon. It's got like 20-ish foot cliff walls and big pools that are nice and cold. And it's got a couple of waterfalls in it, and like ferns grow off the side of the canyon walls, and it looks really cool.
Oh, sounds pretty cool for a summer hike. Are there trees shading your path, or is it just all...
No, it's a river, right?
Right.
So you walk in a river, which means there's not a lot of shade or anything because you're in a river, and trees don't grow out of rivers.
So explain to me why you're hiking or traveling on riverbanks or a river
to
the Narrows.
So in Texas, rivers that are assessed as navigable, which is like 33 feet across on average, are considered to be Texas Parks and Wildlife land.
Uh-huh.
And so to do it legally or mostly legally, you have to remain in the riverbed or on the riverside of the bank crest.
Okay.
And so that's why you have to hike in the river to remain legal, so you're not walking through other people's private property.
So what you're telling me is that the path to the Narrows and the land surrounding the Narrows themselves are private owned.
The land surrounding, yes.
Okay. So that's why you can't just hike through trees or anything. You can't take any other route unless you get the permission of the landowners around you.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. So were you guys the only ones out there when you were when you visited this time? Did you encounter people on your way?
So when we first started walking, we found some people fishing. It looks like they came down from like some RVs or campers. I don't know if they're full-time living there or if they're like Airbnbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's about it for the way out there. We got there and we found a family who said they had rented the Narrows, and then two other hikers who had come from upstream, and we came from downstream.
Now, that family has said that they rented the Narrows. Can you rent the Narrows?
Technically you cannot rent the Narrows themselves because it's the body of water, but you could, in theory, rent the land around it.
Okay.
From the landowner.
So these people wanted you to, or were kind of warning you that they had rented the place and therefore you couldn't be there.
Yeah, they were cordial but cool about they had rented it since March and they just wanted to enjoy it as a family. But they just wanted to be in the waterfall section, and we were like, whatever, we're cool with whatever. So we explored, downstream some more in like the big holes and along the canyon walls inside of the Narrows.
Well, and I'm bringing this up because in case any of our listeners want to, adventure, take that journey into the Narrows, they might encounter another family or another set of individuals telling them that they reserved this place. And, it would be good to know what to respond, which is, hey, this is public land. I mean, publicly owned because I'm on in the water, in the river. So, you can't really rent it.
I don't know if that's even worth it. I think it's easier just to say, oh, okay, and to try and avoid conversation because if you get the sheriff involved, there's still going to be an issue.
Why would there be an issue if you're lawfully there?
Because that doesn't always matter. You can be arrested for trespassing or whatever, and then that can get sorted out later, but you're still arrested or detained at that point. So I think you're better off just saying, oh, okay, and avoiding the conversation of those folks out there if they have that mentality.
Okay. Interesting. But, my concern is that, you ran into people that were kind, but, or kinder, not every person's going to be that way.
Nope. And that's why if they're willing to be mean and call the police, it's probably not worth your effort to talk to them and try and explain the complicated legality of the situation.
So if I were to go over there, should I take a little printout of the law saying, this land is navigable? It's.
I mean, I've seen it online
Okay.
that's what people recommend, but I still don't think that's going to matter in the initial phases. I mean, you're going to show a police officer and they're going to say, okay, great, we're still taking you in for trespassing right now.
All right. So if you're going to go into the Narrows, for those of you listening, make sure you have an attorney on call. So,
Yeah, that might be something you
uh,
need.
yeah, because it's a very it's a very desired spot for Texan hikers or Texan explorers to visit. It's one of those, magical spots that everybody wants to get to.
And it doesn't
So,
help that a lot of people, like kids, have driven across land and just gone straight out there instead of doing the hike and doing it the legal way. So they've kind of irritated people. And the other issue is that it's county sheriffs that are the police officers there,
mhm.
and sheriffs are elected officials, so they have a tendency to do what their constituents want. So that's another part of the aspect.
So what is it that led you and your friend to go there then?
We had a weekend off, and it's somewhere that I've wanted to go and have been loosely planning for a while, and it just worked out that it was a good time to go.
But what was your plan then, considering all the challenges you've just told us about?
It was making sure that we entered from a water crossing, so you step legally off a road into the riverbed, and so you don't ever touch anyone's property.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that, and just doing your best to stay in the riverbed itself.
So you were willing to risk getting arrested?
I mean, loosely, I didn't think we'd have a problem, and I was willing to play the veteran card if needed. I don't know if that would have helped or not, but it was a
Okay.
tool in my tool bag.
Okay. Interesting. So how long was your walk/swim up the river and into the Narrows?
So there's not too much swimming because it's the downstream portion known as the Dry Blanco.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long it was. Let's say 3 to 4 hours for 7 miles.
Okay.
And that was the trip there.
And then another 7 miles down.
Yeah.
On your way back, right?
Yeah, but we got to take a shortcut on the way back.
Okay, how'd you take this shortcut?
On the way back, we met a couple that was swimming in the river, and they said, hey, that's so cool that you went to the Narrows. I've been there a couple of times, but I've never done it as a hike.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all look tired. You can just cut through our property.
Oh.
So we walked through their property and got on the road, and it probably saved us a mile, but the road is a lot easier than walking in the
Right.
riverbed, especially in certain spots where it's real rocky or things like that.
Oh, so you were wearing swimming shoes, or what were you wearing?
No, just hiking shoes.
Okay.
Because I don't wear boots or anything. I wear like shoes that you could either run and or hike in.
Was most of the water level like walkable, or did you find yourself swimming most of the time? What was it like?
No, so the water that we ran into, almost all of it you could wade in.
Uh-huh.
There was one section, I don't know, between half a mile, but definitely not more than a mile. The first time on the way out going to the Narrows, we ended up swimming a lot of it.
Uh-huh. So it's like about half a mile to a mile?
Yeah.
Okay.
But on the way back, we learned and we followed like the sandbar in it. So we only probably had to swim, I don't know, 200 meters to 400 meters.
So swimming is definitely required.
Yeah. And then there are other parts where you could not swim, but it's so slick
Mm-hmm.
that you're better off just swimming.
Yeah.
And I mean, what we did is our bags had waterproof bags in them, dry bags.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just keep them on your back, or you put them in the front of you and you just float
Okay.
and you kick and swim. So it's kind of like a built-in life vest. Not as safe, but gets the job done.
Oh, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not a strong swimmer, that's a little extra help you could get.
Yep.
Oh. Anything else you want to tell us about the Narrows or that you thought was cool?
I mean, I guess I could walk you through the kind of the basic timeline.
Okay.
So from all of the research I'd done on the internet, it made it sound like it was a nightmare, and they handed out all sorts of trespassing fines and tickets. Didn't encounter that this time. It doesn't mean, I guess that'll be everyone's experience, but I guess if you are out there just as a hike and look like a hiker, you won't get messed with. If you're out there looking like a partier, I assume that there's some of that perception and you'll get harassed. But I don't know. I can only speak from my one-time experience. The big issue is what to do with your car. There's a lot of no parking, and I'm sure a lot of the locals don't want you parking there on their land.
So what'd you do?
So it works best to get dropped off at one of the bridges
Mm-hmm.
and then also get picked up there.
Okay.
I guess another option, it seems like there's some Airbnbs in the area. They're not going on right now because of COVID. But, maybe next summer, if things are better, that could be an option for a lot of people, is to get an Airbnb and then walk to the river itself. So, we got to our bridge, stepped in, started going. I was definitely real nervous at the beginning because, I was expecting people to come running out from everywhere to be like, get off our land, because that's kind of how the internet makes it seem.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, we didn't experience that. Our first people that we found were those fishermen, fisher ladies. There's about 5 people, somewhere between 3 and 5. I don't remember the exact number.
Mm-hmm.
I was not looking forward to meeting them, but we walked up to the first guy and he was friendly, like, oh, how far did you walk? And we're like, hey, did you catch anything? And he's like, not yet. And then everyone else just kind of waved at us as we went by.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, I don't know, a mile or 2 in. Then when we got to like a dry section, it wasn't too bad. Then we got to like sections with like, they were rock fields pretty much. So you had to scramble over a bunch of small rocks. That was kind of one of the hard areas. We also got to an area with really high cliff walls on the side.
Ooh.
But you can see up, and there's like people who build their houses like right on the edges. So
Wow.
as you'd get closer, you'd hear like air conditioners, but you wouldn't know what it was. You just hear mrrr,
Oh, okay.
and you'd be like, oh, there's a house. Okay, that's cool, I guess. Seems kind of dangerous, but I get the appeal.
It's their home insurance.
Yeah, I know.
They're paying, and the nature that they're
Yeah.
destroying.
And then so we got a little bit further past that. We got to that half mile or so section where we had to swim, and we had to actually like swim the first time, because that's kind of how we tried to stay near one of the banks, but that apparently was the deep side.
Okay.
So that required us to do a lot of swimming. My friend was the first one to give it an attempt because he kept bragging about how much water polo he plays.
Oh, God.
So he was trying to hold his backpack over his head. And he drank quite a bit of river water, and I giggled at it. And I was also a little worried he was going to die at the time, but he pulled through.
Wow. Okay.
And then so we ended up swimming a good chunk of that. It was a test for our bags to see how dry they would stay. They worked. Everything stayed dried. No electronics failed or anything. We continued on. We got to I guess it'd be like a swimming hole section, and he jumped off it was like a rock. It wasn't like the bank, so we didn't actually trespass.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a large rock that was like in the river, and he
Uh-huh.
climbed up it and jumped it off. Well, I don't know. I dumped some rocks out on my shoes or something, because that
Mhm.
happens. And so he did that. And then we kept going. It rained right at that point. The sun was out, but it was one of those like no clouds, sun out rain. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
We kept going, and then we got to a very like long dry section where it's wide, real dry, dusty.
Oh.
Yeah. So I mean, it was pretty hot there, and it was later in the day. You're gonna get dust in your shoe. Also, your shoes are just gonna be wet a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
We started the trip with our socks off, but we're just like, let's just keep our socks on because they're gonna get wet, and it's at least protecting us from all these rocks and dust.
Right.
And then after like the long dusty section, it goes back and forth a little bit, but you'll know the next set where you start to get into a wider like canyon, and there's actually some water.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll definitely like you should be like, oh, okay, I'm getting close to the Narrows, because it starts to kind of look like it, but not quite. The canyon walls are a little bit wider, the water's warm, but as you walk up that about a mile or so, it starts to narrow, and the water gets cooler, and you get those deeper holes.
Yeah.
And, just at some point you'll be like, yeah, this is the Narrows, I can tell, because it's cooler.
And it's not faking you out?
Nope, it's not
Okay.
faking you out. It's the real deal. And it's a great feeling to be there. We got there like right as the family, like they were just a little bit ahead of us. Had I not ruined the trip and forgot my backpack, and which is why I had to come back to our house and get it, we actually would have beaten them there and not had an issue with like running into them.
Yeah.
But we showed up. There's like a little waterfall / run with real slippery rock in the Narrows. I mean, the Narrows is long, but that's where everyone wants to go. And the guy helped us, he showed us, he's like, this is how you do it. I'm a rock climber. And, and then you get up to this little pool section and there's another little waterfall, slippery, and he showed us how to do it. And, all the time he's like being cordial and nice and helping us, but occasionally throwing out things like, yeah, y'all shouldn't be here, or I shouldn't be helping you, or, things like that. I don't think he actually said you shouldn't be here, but he's like, I rented it. I had it since March. We were sick in March, so you may not want to be around us. That's why I'm not, giving you a hand or anything. And I shouldn't even be helping you. And we're like, yeah, cool. Okay.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah. So we went up the two little waterfalls that are by pools. And then you get up to the last section. And I don't know, it's 10 feet tall, but it's actually like a real waterfall where water comes down. It's not just like a slick wall that water runs over. It actually drops down and it's a cliff face.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we hung out there. Then we went down. You got to jump into the pools because they're slick. So you just hop down, jump into the water, swim to the wall, jump down. I got glass in my hand in one of those sections, so I had a cut for a while.
The glass somebody left out there?
Yeah, it must have been a shard or something sharp, because I was just like, oh, that was sharp. And then I looked down and I had a cut and I was bleeding a little bit, but it wasn't a big deal. I survived.
I'm glad.
I didn't get any infection or anything. So we messed around at the Narrows for an hour. We avoided them. Some of the deep holes that I'm talking about, they actually are connected. So if you're brave, you can swim under and connect.
Oh God, but you don't know which ones.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got to take it easy. If you had a light, I took goggles. Didn't really help very much because the water is so dark and deep. If you had like an underwater light, I'm sure it would help a lot. There's some that are like obviously just like a little archway that's like a foot wide, and you can be like, oh, I can swim under that, and you can do it, and it feels cool.
Yeah.
We saw like I don't know, a tadpole.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was like almost frog.
You told me about that.
Yeah, it was real cool. I don't think I've ever seen like a tadpole that close to being frog, so that was a neat find.
Yeah, it's in metamorphosis.
Something like that. And then, after being there about an hour, we decided it was time to head back. We went back. We didn't have to swim as much because we'd gotten a little bit smarter about finding sandbars and moving to the left and right to try and find things to walk on. And then, about where we saw the people fishing, which is about 2 miles or so, I'd say. That's when we met the couple that lived there, and we're like cut through our land, and that saved us a bunch of time.
That's nice. That was nice of them.
And we made sure to get their names so it wasn't a trap. We're like, just in case anyone gets upset that we're on your land. And they're like, oh yeah, no worries. So they told us their name and everything. And we made it back to the car, or we made it back to our pickup site, and it was no issue. Got in the car and left.
Sounds like a great time, great adventure.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. I'd like to do it from upstream to downstream. We did downstream and then back downstream. I'd like to do both. But if you start upstream, it's a lot more wet because there's more river and you have to do a lot more swimming.
So you wanted to do it harder?
I mean, I just want to get the full experience, see what it's like.
Well, why is that the full experience?
Because I want to see what upstream looks like too.
Okay.
I could be missing some cool areas because there was plenty of cool areas downstream. Not as cool as the Narrows, but still things like noteworthy.
Okay.
And then, but you also, you've got to be prepared to swim more, and you need a rope to get down that waterfall.
Ew.
If you want to be legal, right?
Yeah.
Because you need to go down the water itself.
Sounds definitely like a good Central Texan adventure trip to take, for sure.
But you need to be prepared. You need to have water, probably a filter. We got low.
You need to know how to swim. You need to have some upper body strength. You
Yeah.
have to be ready to hike, obviously.
And walking on all the rocks, it's a little bit, it's a more intermediate to hard challenge doing it. So you've got to be physically fit. And my calves came back like gloriously tanned because that's where the sun was aimed the entire time. So
I rolled my eyes at that.
be prepared to have sun protection. I wore a long sleeve shirt and shorts. Depending on the time of the year, I may do it in pants. If I was going to start upstream, I'd definitely be in shorts. But if I was doing downstream again, I think I'd wear pants this time.
Did you take any snacks with you?
Yeah, definitely. We took salami and cheese for lunch, and I don't know, I had like some paydays. And then my friend brought, I don't know, whatever he brought. And
so if you can't take a lot of water for some reason, at least take a water filter, right?
Yeah, because it's a river, and you'll find water along the way, and you can filter it as you go.
It might not taste as good though, so maybe if you can.
I don't know. Tastes fine. If you have no issue with filtered water, but I haven't run into any water that's been filtered that just still tastes horrible after that.
Okay. Well, I can't think of any more questions at this time. It sounds like a great trip. I know some.
Yeah, it definitely is.
People are definitely interested in going.
It's worthwhile. Just make sure you do it legally and you're respectful, and you'll have way less trouble that way.
Okay. And well, thank you, Jarrett, for sharing with us your experience at the Narrows.
Definitely worth it.
Guys, if you would like to learn more about Adventures with BG, you can go onto our website, adventureswithbg.com, or you can follow us on Instagram at adventureswithbg. Those are the letters B and G at the end. You can also follow us on Facebook. And for Wandering into the Woods, this is Jarrett and Linda. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, everybody.